Excuse me. I don't suppose you'd like a cup of tea, would you?
Well, what is the catch?
So basically, I'm a filmmaker.
Oh, okay, yes.
And what I do is I go around the UK and I make people cups of tea and we just have a chat about life on a bench.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Are you
that's
down?
fine,
What's
yeah.
your name?
Harry.
Harry, I'm Will. How's your day going, Harry?
Not bad. I usually come along here and do about 10 laps of the park.
Yeah.
It's more therapeutic actually for me because last year I had a serious accident. And I was suffering from complex PTSD. I had severe concussion. My face was all ripped open. I mean, I grow a beard to sort of conceal the stitches, and it's all largely because I'm an ankleist.
Oh my gosh, Harry.
And I was clipped and left in a ditch on the 7th of January for like 55 minutes. So luckily for me, hypothermia didn't set in. The person concerned just drove off. You know, they clipped my right shoulder and straight into a ditch. Wooden fence, barbed wire. There was nothing I could do. It was in a millionth of a second, head straight into the barbed wire fence. And, okay, the helmet took a lot of the impact, but it sort of ripped the helmet off. So then the barbed wire just tore me. Nose was broken, cheekbone broken. But hey ho, I'm alive. I've got to look at it positively. Will, it's not easy, Will. I mean, it's been difficult 14 months, but the progress is slow. Seeing a psychiatrist every week and sort of coming along, you know.
Harry, I'm just great to hear that you're alive after that.
Absolutely. I'm a bit of a nutter, actually. I mean, I've got titanium pins in both wrists. So sometimes I think, well, it's fate. It's, you know, and I think sometimes you have to look at it in the sense that adversity.
How strong do you like your tea?
I'll leave my tea bag in there.
Okay, cool.
Sometimes what you have to look at is what adversity does for you.
Yeah.
It instructs, it makes you somewhat stronger, as Nietzsche would say, you know. Suffering makes us stronger, it separates us from the herd, you know. And in that sense, suffering, it could be adversity, ill health, but in that moment, you realise just what you are all about. You know, there are insights into your character that you didn't know you had, or B, they surprise you and thinking, well, this is a form of resilience for me. You know, if I can tap into that life force, that energy. You know, I mean, the Hindus call it prana, and it's the inner life force. I mean, I've never given up. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, though, Will. I mean, there was a stage where I couldn't see the point.
Yeah.
You know?
Really?
Yeah, you know, I don't want to be here anymore. And it was momentary, but still it was quite profound. We don't all go through life hunky-dory, you know, and I've had my fair share of injuries. I mean, 3 years ago, they were going to amputate my leg there.
Wow.
It's, you know,
and what was that, another cycling injury?
On a spin bike. I mean, I haven't got on my bike for about 14 months, but for me, it defines who I am. It's the freedom, you know, with all my race, because I have a racing bike and it's with all the race gear on, and it's, you know, the contact of the rubber on the tarmac, and it's just so liberating, you know. So, and that's, you know, I mean, I know the wife and me older brother used to come round and sort of rehab, making sure I was getting up in the morning, making sure I wasn't doing anything silly. When I say silly, I was self-medicating with alcohol, and I thought, well, that's not going to help, you know. And, you know it's wrong, but you can't see it. You know, the simple things you just cannot see when you're in that frame of mind. When the complex PT was largely on account of the severe head trauma, the concussion.
Of course.
And prior to that, you know, I usually brush myself down and get up. Oh, great, you know, I'm invincible. But this one particular incident, you know, it was totally revelation in the sense that, hey, I can't cope. This is not me, you know. It's I mean, to this day, it surprises me 14 months down the line, and I'm thinking, I'm glad it happened. I am so glad it happened, because now I have learned something about myself, the inner resources we have,
Yeah.
the tools, the ability to say, okay, it was an event, and life is all about momentary events. You know, we're sort of moving along this trajectory. It's not like a time scale. But life is made up, and there are some people, as I was saying to you, what Nietzsche was saying, what suffering separates us, it ennobles us. Because from that suffering and adversity, call it what you will, if you're good enough, you can see there is something within you, within us all, that can deal with trauma. It's almost like a rebirth,
Yeah.
whereby you sort of, you learn from the event,
Yeah.
and you take it from there. It's tough, don't get me wrong, it really is tough. But I find doing things like exercise, I mean, like I took my dust covers off 2 racing bikes at the weekend, and I'm thinking, oh yes, and it'd just be a question of me just hopping on and maybe go around the block, and before I know it, I'll be hitting the training sessions of 130 miles or what have you. But like I say, I don't want to jump to conclusions with myself.
Yeah.
I don't want to run before I can walk. So it's like coming here and I'll do 10 laps of the park, and it helps to center the mind and center the very being. So yeah, I mean it's don't get me wrong, Will. It's not a nice sort of phase I'm going through. It's not something I would have chosen to have happened, the event itself. But I've got to look at the positives, I mean, I can swamp myself with all the negativity, like, oh, poor me. What about this? Should I not have gone out at that time? Could I have alternated my route? It's when you get into that mode of thinking, it doesn't help.
Yeah.
So the mode of thinking I'm in now, it's not easy. It's being grateful for the fact I have my life. It's a blessing. It's a gift I have. I'm 63 years of age, and I can do these things.
Yeah.
And for me, it's okay. You went through a bad patch, but hey ho, look at you. Look at what you've gone through. All the injuries you've had, titanium pins. My shoulder was ripped off in 2017. That's been rebuilt with titanium pins and polyester ligaments. And it's like I'm thinking to myself, well, hang on, Harry, at the end of the day, compare yourself, I shouldn't, but compare yourself to other people, say maybe 40s plus. Look at what you've been through.
Yeah.
Physically, the sheer trauma I've put my body through. But strangely, Will, the physical trauma is not an issue. It doesn't bother me so much, strangely. I mean, my sort of physical resilience has always been there. Okay, all the stitches are done. I've probably got to have more surgery on my eyes because it affected the laxity in my eyelids. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, it doesn't bother, bring it on. I don't even dwell on that.
Yeah.
But what really threw me was like the mental trauma. Whoa, this is something I've never experienced before, and sometimes life is there. If there's challenges, it challenges you. I mean, you've experienced it yourself probably. You've spoken to people who've gone through various things in their life, and it's just amazing, really. And for me, it's the trajectory now is getting back to a semblance of order in my life.
Yeah.
Where I get back. I used to go to the gym 6 nights a week. It was all training. It was all to do with anaerobic activity and aerobic activity to sustain myself on a racing bike. When people think you're on a bicycle and it's straightforward, no, it's a myth. I mean, it's not all about just pedaling. It's about your wrist, because you're in a race position, your lower back, and essentially what you're doing is you're trying to be aerodynamic. So you cut through the wind, and this is where all your aerodynamic helmet comes in, or race gear. It's tight fitting. So you're trying to cut out all kinds of resistance to the wind, and once you hit certain speeds, it is the most beautiful thing on the planet, because you're doing it under your own steam, and it's like, you could hit speeds of 30, 40, 50 mile an hour, and every day I wake up now and it's that feeling of gratitude, and how I work. I don't know if you've ever heard of Phil Stutz, the
No.
psychiatrist. Jonas Hill did a documentary on him for Netflix, and they regard him as somewhat a bit of a psychiatrist to the stars, and he hates that. But as a psychiatrist, he says the old system is they treat people as patients. You know, you've got a problem, you've got a disease, whereas he doesn't regard it like that. He wants to give you certain tools to cope with when you're feeling whatever, you're bad or lack of confidence, and it's absolutely wonderful. I mean, that's all I've been sort of reading for the past year, and it's given me tools that I can use to help my own well-being.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I
It's amazing how you've come out, and I know you're still going through a lot.
Yeah.
But boy, is it amazing! Like from everything you're saying.
Yes, I mean,
Harry.
sometimes I have to. The trouble with me, I'm a very harsh critic as an individual, and I've got to be able to turn around and pat myself on the back and say, "Hey, you're doing all right." You know, it's not as bad as you're assuming it is. It isn't, no way, because at the end of the day, you are working jolly hard to fix yourself, physically as well as mentally. Whereas the psychiatrist, I'm seeing her again on Thursday, she is lovely, Lisa, and she was going, you've got to be able to look at just what you have achieved.
Yeah.
You know, you could have died, you were left in a ditch, you know, and your face was torn out and blood everywhere, you know. And I thought, okay, yeah, I've got to look at it. She goes, the trouble with you are your own harshest critic.
Yeah.
And you must turn around and say, look at, and I don't like using words such as negative and positive because they're loaded. They just have this inner meaning with the negative, you know. Whereas if you turn around and say, well, okay, let's look at it in a different way. It's just a form of adversity in some respects.
Yeah.
And you think,
What a day.
oh, absolutely
What a
wonderful,
day.
isn't it?
Aren't we looking?
Aren't we
It's
just?
gorgeous.
And that's the sort of approach I'm taking now, Will. You know, it's probably, it may take another year, it may take a week. Something is going to happen which is going to probably say, well, you're done. You're back, you know. And I think the only way I'm going to get back, well, is as soon as I hit that bike, you know. When I hit the road, I know full well, it's all going to be good.
Yeah.
And you gotta have faith in yourself, and that's important as well. Well, one has to have faith in a higher power, whatever. It's without it, we were almost adrift on a sea, where we're trying to make some kind of meaning of life, and we can. I mean, I remember, was it modernism, postmodernism? I mean, it all started with I remember Descartes, cogito ergo sum, I think therefore I am.
Yeah.
Well, rational thinking is not the be all and end all. At the end of the day, we have the subconscious, the unconscious, and more importantly, our instinct. But we seem to have lost our way with modern living, consumerism, whereby we're looking for things externally to satisfy us, When in actual fact, the greatest gift of all is what's within us. And sometimes I was speaking to the psychiatrist. Sometimes I feel like Sisyphus, the Greek king who was forced to push this rock up a mountain for all of eternity. And now modernist thinking would regard that as, oh look, it's the sheer futility of life. You're constantly struggling. But an ancient way of looking at it is the actual act of pushing that rock gives Sisyphus stamina, endurance. He'll do it regardless. To see it roll back down again, but he will do it, and he will continue to do it. And it shows just what we can attain through suffering.
Yeah.
We learn something about ourselves. We are not
through suffering, do you mean?
Exactly. Yeah, and as an alpha species on the planet, we seem to forget who we are. We're lost in this maze of consumerism, materialism, and it's instant gratification. But sometimes even the psychiatrists and a lot of people say, bloody hell, Harry, look at the injuries you've had, and still you still want to go on your bike, For me, it's a non sequitur. It's what I do. it's what defines me as a human being, you know, the fun on a race bike, you know, and sure, I could kill myself, but hey, go and die, do what I enjoy, you know. Well, I mean, it's a risk. I mean, you probably know yourself, all the way people drive nowadays.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane, isn't it, you know? But again, it's a passion, you know. And I think life without a purpose or a passion or a reason is no life at all. We sit there in a comfort zone where we're afraid to step out because, oh no, I don't feel comfortable with that because I'm going to feel pain or suffering because I'm happy in this little bubble of mine where as I approach adversity, if I approach a challenge, I'm unsure. But what we forget is through approaching that challenge, we learn to be able to say, okay, I'm coming out of my comfort zone. It's painful, it's not nice, but once you do that, it's almost as if that pain is not, that monster of pain is not chasing you. You are chasing the pain.
Yeah.
You are saying, bring it on. I love pain. Pain sets me free. And before you know it, you've set yourself on, it's almost this, it's like what Phil Stutt says, it's a form of movement. Unless we move or make a commitment, we're going to stagnate. We're not going to take that chance. It's like W.H. Murray, the great alpinist, mountaineer. He was in the prisoner of war camp in the Second World War, and I love his statement. He says, "It is only when we commit that Providence helps us.
Yeah.
Unforeseen circumstances help." And it sets a motion of wonderful things that would, had you not committed yourself, you would never have gained the benefit. And I'm thinking, yeah, makes sense. It's happening with me. Yeah. The fact I've moved, I took a step. I mean, I didn't want to come to the park today. I didn't want to do 10 laps, but it's a question of, I made that commitment. It's a covenant almost, so to speak. I mean, it's all ancient sort of terminology. Yeah. But sometimes it's the ancient terminology that helps, because once you've made that commitment, it's a promise to yourself. You cannot renege on it, and that's the reason why I'm here, you know. And before you know it, it opens up, you feel better. I'm in the sun, I'm appreciating the sheer gift of this beautiful day, and it's the little things now I'm working on, you know, little things of gratitude. I wake up in the morning, I breathe, I can see, you know, and we forget, you know, it's life itself is so fickle. Yeah. You know, 1 minute we're here, the next minute we're not. And a classic example for me is on June the 21st last year, my older brother went out for a walk and had a massive cardiac and passed away.
I'm sorry to hear that.
But it's like, for me, there's some learning there, isn't there? And always he used to come round and say to my wife, we're going to get rid of these race bikes. We're going to melt them down. They're state-of-the-art aluminium, but we're going to get rid of them because he's going to kill himself. And yet, there's me engaging in this sort of, you know, it's a dangerous activity, I suppose, you know, because I don't sort of go slow. Yeah. And there was my brother. He never ever came out of a comfort zone. He was quite happy in his little existence, you know. I'm not knocking him. I'm not being judgmental, because judgmental is not right. You don't judge. I'm not one to judge, because it can set off a wave of negativity whereby it affects you, not the person, because you're judging the person. They don't know. But it's the fact, how do you feel about it? And then it can start off this sort of just a flow of negativity, which we don't need in life. I mean, we've got to be able to, like I say, we're sat here, we're appreciating an absolutely lovely day. Yeah. You know? I mean, two complete strangers, we're sat talking. Well, it's almost as if it's more than coincidence. It was meant to happen. Yeah. And sometimes we need to look at life like that. So it's the opportunity. Like, going back to what I was saying about W.H. Murray, it's providence. You know, it's this opportunity just to speak to somebody.
Well, no, what beautiful words you're saying, Harry. It makes me emotional.
Well, no, we are emotional beings, you know, and at the end of the day, it's the beauty, you know, it's a sheer beauty of, I am sat talking to a complete stranger, Will, We have never met before.
Yeah.
And yet it's the connection, the human connection, which I'm afraid with social media and the way we live our lives now, it's that connection is no longer there. It's no longer sort of, people don't appreciate that, the ability to sit and talk with a cup of tea, and it's not just like texting on social media, it's the connection we have as human beings. It's our facial expressions, it's our demeanour, it's how genuine we are as human beings. It has to come from the heart. The genuineness, sincerity, openness, and transparency. I mean, there is no underlying sort of ulterior motive. We're just sat talking. I know it's it's what you do. You're a filmmaker, a documentary maker, but it's just wonderful.
I say to it, you're finally getting a sip of the tea, Harry. I like to say to everyone that the film is the secondary thing and this first thing is the conversation.
Absolutely.
I've got a question, mate. So obviously you're keen to get back on your bikes, but you mentioned you got a wife. What's her thoughts on that?
I did ask her about 6 months ago. I goes, look, if it's causing you enormous distress, me going out on a bike. And I think my brother was around at the time as well. I think I sat them both down. I says, if it's causing you so much stress and anxiety, I will happily stop cycling, because I don't want you feeling the way you do. Because every time I walk out the door or I get on my bike, she's in a state of constant worry.
Bless.
And I said, I don't want you to have that.
Yeah.
And then she took a while and paused. And I said, I'm happily get rid of all the bikes, And she goes, well, no, Harry, it's what defines you as a person. When I met you 31 years ago, you were a cyclist. And within a week, you smashed your wrist open.
No, you didn't.
Within a week, and she goes, that is who you are.
Yeah.
And you've been blessed in a lot of ways that you from physical injury, you come back, you bounce back, your resilience is ferocious.
Yeah.
She goes, this is just a minor setback. And she goes, yes, if you want to stop cycling for whatever reason, because you think I should start slowing down because of my age, fine. But she goes, no. At the end of the day, you don't need to slow down. It's who you are. You can go to the gym and spend 4 hours on a spin bike, giving it welly, and not think anything of it. And I thought, well, that's just who I am. I love physical activity. It's important, I think, because again, life is so fickle. 1 minute we're here, next minute we're not. I mean, crikey, we've only just got to look at that devastating effect of that earthquake,
Gosh.
You think people are just going about their activities the next minute, an act of God of such ferocity, 7.8 on the Richter scale.
Yeah.
You think, wow. And we here in the West, all we do is we whinge, we whine. We're looking to blame others for our own failure. I've dived into the abyss, and it is only in that abyss, the darkness, that one truly finds light.
Yeah.
When I say light, it's an energy, be it cosmic, be it God, call it what you will. There is an inner energy which connects us to fellow beings, be it human beings or being animals. It's like a connecting rod. It connects us to a higher force.
Yeah.
And that higher force, okay, it can be indifferent. Because, when people say, well, the universe is bloody indifferent. No, not necessarily. If you can tap into it and if you can turn around and say, now for me it's instinct event, I take the decision, I make the commitment, whatever the consequences, the outcomes, they're immaterial.
Yeah.
Because then I'm thinking, then to do otherwise, to say, well, I'm looking for some benefit here, the universe is, no, it isn't going to help.
Yeah.
Why should it help, But what will help is, or what assistance you will get is the actual taking that commitment and acting on that commitment. Whether it's your drawing or whether it's I'm going for a walk, and that's what life is all about. It's a series of events that we have to go through. And within them series of events, there's peaks and troughs.
Yeah.
And, I hit the trough, but it's having the ability and faith to say, it's temporary. You know, it's not going to last forever.
Yeah.
You know, and at the end of the day, that's the way I look at it. You know, it gives me a great sense of self-belief. You know, okay, sure, I'm not exactly the person I was, but then I don't want to be the person I was anymore. You know, this is going to be the new version 4.0, Harry. You know, it's just the way I've got to look at it, because...
Do you think you have so much, the way you talk, it brings so much meaning to life.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like each of these versions you've gone through has built this meaning of life that you've built, Harry? Because it's
Absolutely.
incredibly philosophical, but incredibly beautiful at the same time. Your whole perspective, like I feel like listening to you, you're just coming out with things that make sense about like the peaks and the troughs of life and rebuilding and stuff.
Exactly, and that's what it's all about. And sometimes we think we've built the foundations, but sometimes you've got to look at the bigger picture. What are the foundations for, and how strong do you need these foundations? Sometimes it's simple. It's the simplicity, but we're lost in the midst of modern living. We can't seem to navigate our way around.
Yeah.
When in actual fact the road is quite straightforward, but we get distracted, we get waylaid. You know, we're on the right road, but it's the mind. The mind is so easily distracted, and it's bringing focus into that mind. Saying, I mean, for me, it's breathing exercises, meditation. You know, it's like here we're sat here, and for me, it's being in the moment. And it's like, forget what we're going to be doing in the next, this evening. For us, we're actually in the moment here, and we appreciate that moment.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just wonderful.
I appreciating the moment and finding everything to appreciate that moment.
Oh yeah.
It's everything, surely, about.
Of course. It's at the end of the day, for me, it's what life is all about. And don't get me wrong, Will. I would have preferred for this accident to never have happened.
Yeah.
We all would. It's the way things are. People are suffering from terrible illnesses, cancers, and what have you. They didn't choose to have the illness. Likewise, I did not choose to have the accident. However, the way I'm interpreting now, it's just a series of events. If I dwell too much on the event, I still get flashbacks, don't get me wrong. You know, it's the flashbacks because of its complex PTSD. But I've learned now to turn around and say, okay, they're flashbacks. Let's not dwell on it. Let's not think of, I could have done this differently. No, that is not going to help, because the event has happened. I can't change that event. What I can change is my perspective to that event.
Yeah.
I can turn around to myself and say, yeah, big deal. You know, it's one of them things. You see some of these professional cyclists falling off mountainsides, punctured lungs and collarbones broken and stuff, and it's the price you pay for your passion. Sure, I mean, at the end of the day, ideally, I wish I could play tiddlywinks or play golfers.
Yeah.
It's just not my nature. And sometimes we have to appreciate our true natures, who we are. And there are occasions when we confront that, and sometimes it can be quite eye-opening, because the real character is something we don't really get on well with. It's the inner being, and sometimes we have to just temper that inner being and say, well, this is who we are,
Yeah.
And living who we are. I mean, I used to go through, before my serious accident, I like to gym every evening, and I used to think, and it was almost like a perspective, a socialist perspective, I suppose. We are all equal. And let us raise people to a certain level. But sometimes what you have to look at and say, there are some people who want to help themselves, and there are others who do not wish to help themselves. And how far are we prepared to go to a point where we can even put ourselves out with that negativity? Because some people, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've in the last, say, 14, 15, 16 months, because I had this issue, I had a lot of friends in the gym. And I'd speak to the manager, Jamie, he's a lovely man. And I said, because I had the accident, and they began to people go, oh, Harry's suffering from mental illness, he's suffering from complex PTSD. All these friends suddenly disappeared. You know, it was like rats fleeing the sinking ship.
Yeah.
And it was quite disappointing for me as an individual to think, well, these people I gave some quality time to, you know, whether they had issues, they had problems, I'd always be there for them. And then what then you realise then is, well, hang on. There comes a point where you just haven't got the mental calories anymore for these people, you know. And so I put concentric circles around me, and only so many people can get in. I don't want to be affected by others' negativity, and
of course,
because I have to think of myself. And it's not me being cold. It's not a cold indifference.
Yeah,
it's just protection, you know.
I guess, but everything that you've been through, Harry, you have to be protective of yourself.
Yes.
And, like, everything you're still coping with, like, you have to be incredibly cautious. And that makes complete sense and stuff. Yeah.
It's just amazing. And yeah, having said that, I'm pretty. I didn't turn around to you and say, "Oh no, not interested."
Yeah.
You know.
Why did you? What was it that made you say it?
I don't know. It was. I suppose it was your approach. It was the way you know. It wasn't. Oh, I've got to, and it was. You gave me the choice. You don't have to. You can, or you don't. You know. It was that business. And for me, it's it's something valuable for you, and also it's valuable for.
I was tearing up at times that you were speaking, because I think everything that you've gone through in your life is so. The hardships of what you've gone through, but also overcoming them and talking about them in such a open way. It's fascinating.
It's important, Will. It is important, because we can lock ourselves away, and it's like John Milton said, the famous poet and writer in the 15th century of Paradise Lost. The mind is its own place. It can create a hell of heaven or a heaven of hell. And that's what you have to be so careful, because the mind is unruly. It can, I say, we can turn around and look at this such a beautiful day and say, oh, if you're feeling down in depression, oh no, I can't see the beauty.
Yeah.
Whereas it's training your mind to see the beauty, and before you know it, it fills you up with an inner energy. You know, so the Hindus call it prana, and I think. And also it's the inner energies, the chakras of the body, the various levels of energy that we have, which connects us to the universe and connects us to a supreme source, be it God, call it what you will. It's that connection. And it's like some people say, well, how can we prove faith? Well, you can't. It's like you love your mum and dad, but you can't prove it. You just do. Yeah. And that's faith. You know, and sometimes you need that. I'm not saying I'm one of these sort of religious fanatics. Far from it. You know, it's sometimes it's just taking a moment and appreciating there is something far greater than ourselves. Yeah. Something which can sustain us. You know, and so we don't have to at the end of the day pray 15 times a day or anything. It's just something which sustains us. And I think it's important. It's important for me.
But like, that's like you talk a lot about, and that was going to be a question I was going to ask. So it's like, has this whole experience that you've been through made you more faithful or less faithful?
It's probably. I've always had a degree of faith, because, strangely enough, I was as a child I was really sickly. I suffered from severe asthma and nearly died on numerous occasions. Really? And I was brought up by Irish Ayers. They were from County Leitrim, and they instilled in me this. I was sickly once, and then this. I call her my mum. She was my second mum. I was so sickly that I was dying, and she went off to this convent, which was not far from us, and she was in a convent herself as a youngster in 5 years in a convent in the Republic of Ireland, and she brought the sisters over and the Mother Superior, and the Mother Superior said, if he wears the Virgin Mary on his neck, he'll be protected. And to this day, I still wear the Virgin Mary around my neck. You know, it's faith. It's I say my Hail Marys and stuff, and it's not as if for me it's superstition. No, it's part of who I am. It's my very nature. I'll be walking around the park and I'll be saying my Hail Marys or whatever. And I know full well it has given me strength. It has given me protection. You know, that faith. You know, it's almost Carl Gustav Jung's belief in archetypes. You know, we all look in a dream in our subconscious.
Yeah.
We have these archetypal figures. You know, we can all relate to the Star Wars figure. You know, the horrible man. But there's also this notion of the mother, all protective. You know, whether it's Athena, the Virgin Mary, it's something which is there to nurture us. We're not going to be judged. She's our mother. She is going to help us regardless.
Yeah.
You know, and it's again having that faith. You know, saying in our darkest moments, in our darkest hours, having just something to latch onto, so as you make sure that inner spark does not go out. You know, it's like that flame. You know, that flame, because it's so easy to. I mean, it nearly happened to me. Well, I'd given up. I thought, this is it, you know, there's no point living. I don't want to live anymore. And I began to drink excessively. It was my way of coping with what was going on, because I couldn't rationalize. And sometimes it's not rationalism or thinking that you need. It's the simplicity of, you know, being in the moment doing your dishes, being in the moment cooking, you know, and that's where you gain an inner awareness, you know, and that inner awareness is so meaningful. Yeah, and it so helps.
I think that's that idea of, I never thought about it like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not religious at all, but that idea of not losing that spark is a really fascinating,
fundamental. It's literally fundamental.
Yeah.
I mean, without having that sort of light, that spark, we're lost. We're lost in the midst of our thoughts, ill feeling towards ourselves, depression, call it, where you'll be demoralised. You don't feel you want to get out of bed. I've done it. I've been through all that. I've never wanted to get out of bed, and it was horrendous, you know, and it still is. You know, there are days when I just don't want to do anything. But
that spark
sort of gives me that belief.
Yeah.
I mean, I know every time I go and see the psychiatrist, have you had any thoughts of harming yourself? And I said, no. No, it's something I did have, and fleetingly I can feel that way, but it's fleeting, because now I turn around to counter that negativity, shall we say. I have this belief in gratitude. I'm grateful for what I have. You know, the fact I can still cycle. I can still get on a spin bike. I can walk here and do 10 laps of the park.
How many laps have you done so far?
9. I've got to just do one more.
You're going to do one more lap?
Yeah, that's me done, you know. But, yeah, it's having the belief, I think, Will, you know. It's without it, I'd be lost.
Yeah.
You know, I look to myself, okay, my brother died, and I'm thinking, gosh, you know, what a double tragedy. Accident in January, my brother dies in June. I'm thinking, whoa, this is a bit too much.
Yeah.
You know, it's how it's how our very nature sort of rails against adversity, and I railed against it, you know. And I was thinking to myself, damn, you know, when is this going to end?
Yeah.
And sometimes you can't look at it that way. It is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, I hate that term. It is what it is, but it's an event.
And life will take you when it takes you, but don't let it take you earlier.
Yeah, absolutely will. And also, I say, for me, the most important thing is gratitude. It's it's called the grateful flow, where I think of 5 every day or every couple of hours, 3 to 5 items which make me grateful. And it's like, you know, my ankles are good, you know. Simple.
What are you grateful for in this moment, or today when you were walking around the park? What were you grateful for, Harry?
The beautiful day, the sun's out, it's absolutely gorgeous. I'm feeling a lot better in myself, you know. I'm feeling like this evening I'm going to go to the gym, do a couple of hours on a spin bike, you know. Stuff. It's the little things which mean, and it's when I do go to the gym, it'll be like, it's like, the way I describe myself sometimes when I'm in the zone, I'm fixed, focused, fired and wired, you know.
Yeah.
I'm blinking. I'm just totally blinking, you know. It's me and that spin bike. For me, it's like being on my bike. It's a synchronicity, man and machine.
Yeah.
You know, and the machine is a simple machine. You know, a chain, couple of wheels, you know, and a fancy frame. But it's just a sheer pleasure. I mean, all the cycling has started, the professional races, and I'm watching them. You see these guys go, and the pain there's up. You can see it in their face. You know, they're doing It was a Milan-San Remo race the other week,
Yeah.
300 kilometres, and it's full gas.
Yeah.
And you can see the pain that they're going, and the crashes that they have. It's just incredible. But again, passion. I mean, thing is though, well, these guys have got professional teams, physiotherapists, nutritionists.
Yeah.
You know, they crash a bike or they leave that there, another one comes off a car, a brand spanking new £15,000 race bike, you know, state-of-the-art carbon fibre. But again, these guys, I mean, their level of fitness is
Extraordinary.
Absolutely. I mean, they can go up the Alps and stuff,
Wow.
and you think,
Yeah.
that's not real. That should not be. There's also issues. I mean, they're still thinking a lot of teams are doping still.
Yeah.
You know, taking drugs. And
Yeah,
the latest one was, which absolutely floored me, carbon monoxide machines. They're actually breathing carbon. What?
It's extraordinary.
What on earth? It's been banned now. The UCI
Yeah,
said no. This is just to a whole new level. You know?
Yeah.
And all it is it's to increase the red blood cells, so you can utilise oxygen a lot more.
Yeah.
What the things they'll do to it's winning. It's like I used to say in the gym, Vince Lombardi was the great NFL coach in the 60s and 70s. He goes, winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. You know, but that's how we can get ourselves so locked into.
And that couldn't be more incorrect, I think.
So right, because with winners you have losers, and and sometimes it's to taking part, and it's you learn more from losing than you do from winning.
But also, you see, I don't know if you know park run, but you see a park run.
Yeah, just
And actually, there's only one person who comes first in a park run. And if everyone was doing it because they were to come first in a park run, well then park run wouldn't exist. And park run exists because it shows actually what that action of going out and doing something for your own health on that day, going to do that lap around the park.
And also, it's a community of runners. You know, kindred spirits, you know.
And I guess like sometimes I feel like in that hunt for winning, we lose that idea of spirit. And
you've got to stay focused. That mindset, it's the idea of spirit. It's a community of individuals.
And don't get me wrong, I think that those people who love winning, absolutely, I completely see why they do that. What people get out of that. But equally, more important is to respect that appreciation of everyone.
And that's something I've learned over the what has happened to me. You know, I used to be ferocious. It was like winning is everything. Yeah, there was no prizes for second best. That's how I was.
Yeah.
You know, I play table tennis. I joined a table tennis club in September because of my neurological deficit.
Yeah.
The neuro said, I said, well, what can I do to help? Oh, I don't know. Well, you're the specialist, for God's sake, man. You know, he goes, no, it's because of the sheer trauma. It's left us somewhat imbalance. You might have issues with your balance and motor neuron functions. And I thought to myself, hell, I know what I'm going to do. I play table tennis, hand-to-eye coordination, firing off the neurotransmitters. And I've recently had it tested, and they said, absolutely fine. It's far better than it was.
That's
prior.
amazing.
You know, because you act, again, it comes back to faith, that desire, that will. I can sit back and say, oh, poor me, you know, I'm neuro deficient. I'm never going to get that neuro function back again. Or I can do something, which is what I did. I thought, oh, play with this. I played table tennis because I used to play competitive as a youngster 45 years ago. And I thought, this will help because it's almost muscle memory. The input, because you're playing so fast, you have no time to think. It's an instinctive. The bat has to be there. Muscle memory has to be. A bit like my cycling. For me now, it's got to the stage where it's muscle memory. You know, it's they can cope. You know, the quads, the calves, everything, and it helps. I mean, I've been playing since September now, and I'll be practicing tomorrow. Practice session, and it is really helping. I'm beating kids 20s and stuff. You know, and I'm thinking it's because it's my competitive nature. It's win. I'm here to win.
It's interesting in that nature, that state.
You know, it gives you that spark in life.
Absolutely.
You know,
and it's chasing you, and
like
in that state, it's helping you.
Absolutely. It's helping me enormously. I mean, these little marginal gains I make. It's an accumulation of positive And
Which is amazing.
you know, and it's that wonderful accumulation that's going to help me, you know, at the end of it. I know I'm coming back. You know, it's this faith in myself. I know the little things I'm doing, maybe not as fast as I want it to happen, but there is a ferocious individual out. Blow it is, you know, I want to be back.
Yeah.
And I have to somewhat tone that character, that personality trait. It's not a healthy personality trait. It wants instant gratification. I want to be better now. I want to be, and I've had to. It's not easy. I've had to cut them thoughts, them sort of thought patterns. I have to say, once they start, shut them down. Once they start, shut them down, because they are not going to help.
And as you said, just got to be grateful about what you managed to where you are now.
Exactly. To me,
and not be your harshest critic.
Absolutely.
Because it sounds incredible what you've managed to pull off.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you know, I'm grateful I'm alive. I'm 63.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, sometimes, I mean, now this is in no way disparaging of other people. How many 63-year-olds can do what I can do?
Yeah.
I've got to look at it realistically, you know. I had, was it 2 years ago, I had some tests. I did some research for COVID.
Okay.
And it was a 16-week program where I was tested VO2 max on a spin bike, ability to utilize oxygen. And what the research was based on was people from my background suffered terribly during COVID. And what they were trying to relate it to was, is it ethnicity or is it lifestyle? And I said, well, you're an exception here, Harry. You can, you know, your ability to utilize oxygen is just absolutely off the scale. Really complex heart monitoring, ECG, a lot more sophisticated than anything in the hospital.
Yeah.
And it was like all these peaks and troughs, how my valves were working.
Yeah.
And he said, it's just amazing. And I goes, well, at the end of the day, obviously you fill questionnaires, you have interviews, and okay, you do these VO2 tests on a treadmill, on a bike, with a mask on, which sees how we utilize oxygen. And I said, your lung capacity is phenomenal. I goes, well, it hasn't just fallen into my lap.
It's training.
It's training, you know, it's something which I do on a regular basis. And he said, but you had COVID 8 times. I goes, yeah, I did have COVID 8 times, but it didn't affect me.
So, so one question, and you don't have to answer this.
Don't check me.
Out of curiosity, I'm wondering in my head, can I ask what was your profession or what?
I was a barrister.
Were you?
Yeah, I was a barrister and spent years and years turmoil because I was defending. It was horrendous, you know, and the things I had to do as a defence lawyer, you know, it was.
But I guess my question was because I was like, I was going to go for you've either been a surgeon in your life or you're a barrister.
I mean, I suppose I've always had the gift, you know, I went to a boarding school. Yeah. So again, it was that elitist nature. You know, I remember my first cross-country run, I was sobbing and crying, I can't do this, I've got asthma. And I remember the masters were saying, Harry, you're running. Yeah. It doesn't matter. Yeah. You know, I said, well, what if I have an asthma attack? Well, so be it. You can have an asthma attack. You can die on the cross country. But a lot of these masters, they were elite soldiers in the Second World War, commandos, Marines. Some were the parachutists, and they saw ferocious adversity in the war. You know, something which is unimaginable to us. You know, we can't sort of comprehend what these individuals went through. But what they gained was, in adversity, it was like excellence in the sporting field, whether it's cross-country running, all sports, gymnastics, every aspect, and also academically. Yeah. You are the best, you know. We were in like Shropshire, that's where the boarding school was, and we used to play local schools, but it was this mentality that was drummed in. You will win. You will. Yeah. It's one of the greatest things I'm proud of, you know, having experienced the sheer brutality of boarding school, you know. And it shapes you. It destroyed a lot of young
Yeah.
lads. I mean, don't get me wrong, Will. I mean, absolutely destroyed young men, you know, because of the sheer harshness of the regime. You know, the corporal punishment, the beatings that kids used to get. And I remember my birthday, when it was your birthday, you'd get a cold dunking in a bath with brushes, and they'd just hold you up. Whoa! Would never have been allowed. This was in the 70s, you know, 73. And would never, I mean, we had, you probably won't remember, there was a miners' strike in 73.
No, I'm 28. That's long before me.
And what happened, was there was no coal. There was no power would go off. But this was the regime, the mentality of boarding school was, we get on. We're not sending you home to your mummies and daddies because we've got no power. What we'll do is, tilly lambs, you'll still do your homework with a tilly lamb. You will still do prep. And okay, couldn't have hot food. It was like cold cuts. But it's how we cope. You know, it was like this. It was a generation where nothing was impossible. Nothing. You got on with it. You know, it was that. And you know, you've probably heard of the term. You know, it's moral fibre, mental fortitude. They had it in abundance, or that was the only thing they knew. There was none of this business of, oh no, I can't possibly do this, or I can't possibly. I mean, I remember the terminology. Can't. It wasn't in our vocabulary. It's not in my vocabulary, because the minute you start saying can't. You begin then to rationalise reasons for not wanting to. It's the mind process. What you'll do then is your thinking process will rational. Oh no, I don't want to do it because, or you'll make excuses. Oh, I don't want to go to the gym this evening. Why? Oh, well, I've walked around 10 times in the park. What's that got to do with it? You know.
Totally.
What's that got to do with it? You know. And then, oh yeah, but this is enough. No, it isn't enough, because for the simple reason, if I want to get back on that racing bike and I want to compete, join a racing team, I've got to have a degree of fitness which is, you know, really up there, you know. You know, the power to weight ratio. I've got to be able to knock out certain walks, and sitting on a wheel. The minute that I drop off that wheel, the cyclist in front, it's hard work just because you're in the slipstream. So you're sticking to the slipstream as much as you can. So it's very complex.
Oh well, it's amazing, like where you are, your story, but also the deepness you've spoken about, Harry. And I don't want to keep you for too long.
No, it's okay, Will. You know, I mean, I can sit here for another 10. I only live down the road, so.
No, it's like, thank you so much for like saying yes to having a cup of tea with me.
No,
I like.
And sometimes, Will, it's an instinctive thing. You know, a person is genuine. You know, it's without thinking. You know, the person is half decent and genuine, and you know. Whereas, had your approach been different, I would have said no, thank you. You know, your approach was decent. You know, when you send me your details, I'll go and I will have a look at not just my interview, but other interviews.
Yeah, no, have a look. I'll send you a text straight afterwards so you can see what it is.
Yeah, and not only that, Will, I mean, there's something I could learn. Experiences of other people, you know, and listening to other human beings and how they deal with the art of living.
Is it? And I think it's like the lovely thing about it is it's such a different answer for each one of us.
Yes.
So we're all different, and we're all.
Do you know what? It's a journey we're all on, Will. You know, and it's the process of the journey. I mean, for me, it's not the end goal. Always.
Absolutely. Harry, I have to carry on driving up north.
Oh, okay.
I drive all the way up north to Preston.
Preston, part of the world.
So I better start making my move.
Yes.
It's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much. No, thank you so much for being down for this. You were an absolute joy to talk to, and I'm sorry that I've got to carry on my journey up.
Not at all. I hope it's been helpful. That's the most important thing.
It has been. Anyway, it's been very helpful.
You take care.
Good luck with your rest of your life, Harry. Thank you. What a sweet man.